Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And before I move forward, may I request you to subscribe, follow, like, and comment on whichever platform you are watching or listening to this show on. And today we have John Follis, award-winning creative director, writer, filmmaker, and we'll be talking about the rising trend of videos for today's businesses, which he predicted long back, and all things advertising. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you, Ajay. My pleasure to be here.
Thank you for your time for coming on this show, John. So straight way to the point, John. You see, in 2013, it was the 2013, and you opened your company, you're called Big Ideas Videos. And what and today you see the videos are in so much of trend. Video podcast, videos in everything, videos in social media, videos in personal communication. People find it easy to talk, video calling, everything video, and you video for marketing and especially for businesses.
Right.
It's been 10 years now, and you predicted it so long back. What was the idea? How it happened? I just was curious to know that for the audience.
Well, it was an evolution of my business. I was in the advertising business in New York City for the first half of my career. And that was in the 80s and the 90s. And then with the internet, shortly after the internet started, I guess around 94, it wasn't long thereafter that with high speed happened around 98 maybe. And with the high speed ability came the video. So ever since I'm a Macintosh guy, and with Mac, there's a program called iMovie. That's I don't know if you're familiar with it. Certainly your Apple people are. But I started dabbling in video when that application was part of the Creative Suite with the Macintosh computer. So, but my main business at that time was I kind of evolved out of the ad agency world because that wasn't very sexy once the internet came along. But I realized that the people I was interfacing with were, for the most part, small business owners. Right. I was in an agency partnership, and we had pretty big clients from around the country. But when I left that, I found myself, I was essentially solo. I just had a couple of people working with me. So when I was networking, I was interfacing with small business owners who wanted to have nothing to do with advertising, but they all needed marketing help. So the Big Idea video was really an evolution out of this marketing consulting that I had been doing from right around the turn of the century. So I just realized through my consulting how many people were clueless about video. And right around that time, Ajay, you may be familiar with this term. I don't know how many of your listeners or viewers are, but the big thing related to video around that time was explainer videos. Are you familiar with that term?
I have got familiar now. I don't know if I remember, but explainer videos I can see are the trend even today. I mean, in so much of today, but I don't remember during that time. But it's good to know. Obviously, now I remember those were explainer videos. I would not remember them by that name, but obviously those were explainer videos.
Yeah, well, I don't know what it was like in India, but here in 2012, explainer videos was like one of the top 10 most searched terms on Google. So that just gives you an idea what a trending thing that was. And for your viewers, listeners, and viewers that still don't know what that that is now. Basically, what as the term suggests, they were videos that explain stuff, and primarily in the B2B category where it required a bit of explaining. So I mean, there are many different styles of video. So these were pretty rudimentary videos that used a lot of animation. This is when a lot of animated videos became the trend. So you might be familiar with what they refer to as the whiteboard videos, where you see the
Yes.
handwriting, you know,
Yes.
on a
Yes.
whiteboard. So that's when those videos started. And that was one example of an explainer type videos where they used the graphics to make it easier to explain what the voiceover was saying. So the combination of the words and the graphics made it really easy to explain something that might otherwise be difficult for a consumer to understand. And you know, not every business needs that. I mean, if you're Coke or McDonald's, you don't need an explainer video. But if you sell some kind of a widget or something that's esoteric, especially B2B, it generally does require a bit of explaining. So that's why these became so popular, especially with the animation. So that really wasn't the kind of video I was doing, because my background is high concept. So
Right.
I was doing more the traditional kind of TV commercial kind of videos. But because I'm a creative guy, I really wanted to jump on this trend, and I found it a lot of fun to figure out some software programs, some animation programs that enabled me to be a explainer video content creator. So that was one of the things I got into when I started Big Idea Video in 2013.
Right. Right. But you see, you are primarily an ad person, an ad man. Uh,
Right.
and you understood marketing so well that I guess a lot of people in marketing won't understand that. And both the stuff that you did, even in 2004 when you started Follis Marketing Therapy, got to tell us about that. And then again
Yeah.
in 2013, you created the Big Ideas videos. In a way, you were thinking purely as a marketing person. Now, tell
Yeah.
us about that. How did it start in so early in 2004?
Well, listen, when when you live in New York City and you have to pay your rent, you've got to constantly figure out how to provide a service to clients that they want to pay for.
Okay.
So this is true with any business, I think, regardless of what the industry is. You've got to continue. Nothing stays the same for very long. Every industry changes, right? And certainly, as I mentioned earlier, the being an advertising guy might have been pretty cool in the 70s and the 80s, not so much in the 90s, and certainly not now. You know, maybe if you work at a big agency and you work on Coke or McDonald's, it could still be a lot of fun. But I was an entrepreneur, and like I said, I found myself in the late 90s at these networking events. And I almost hesitated to answer the question, what do you do? Because when I said I'm an advertising guy, they would say, excuse me, and they walk to the bar to get another drink. So, but they, because when they hear advertising, they think, Super Bowl commercials and TV commercials and things that they couldn't come close to affording, nor were they things that they felt they really needed. But all of them wanted to talk to me about marketing. So the question at that point, Ajay, was, okay, so if I'm not going to call myself an ad guy to scare people away, what am I going to call myself? And what do I need to do for my own business to stay relevant? And I didn't want to call myself a marketing consultant because that's a pretty boring thing, I thought. But it's a kind of an interesting story how it happened. I got a call around 2004 from a woman who was referred to me. She was a solopreneur, independent business person. She was referred to me as someone who could basically give her some advice. And so she wanted some consulting. And at that time, I wasn't thinking, I was still thinking I was an ad guy. And this is when things began to change because she said, I really would just love to talk to you for a couple of hours and I'll pay you. And my response was, well, I don't do that. And of course, the more I deflected her attempt to want to work with me, the more she insisted that I agree to work with her. And finally, a voice went off my head and said, shut the hell up and figure out what to charge this woman. So I told her that I would sleep on it. And then the question came that I had to come up with was, I told her I'd give her the call her the next day and let her know what I would do. So it really came down to what I was going to be charging an hour. And I came up with an hourly rate that I didn't really think she could afford, but I felt that it was a fair rate that adequately would compensate me for what I was offering her. And this was in 2004, and what I suggested, what I told her my rate was $250 an hour in 2004. And I was expecting her to say no, and she said, okay. And then I said, oh, and I get paid up front. Because I don't want to chase someone for, $250 an hour. So she said, okay. So she came to my apartment in New York. She sat on my couch. I sat next to her with a pad and pen and said, what's your problem? And for the next 50 minutes, she spoke nonstop. It was just like one continuous sentence. And finally, as we were coming up in an hour and I had, the check in my hand, I felt like I should interrupt the woman so at least I could offer her some feedback. She couldn't believe that she was talking nonstop for almost an hour. And I said, I don't mind giving you a little extra time here, but we do have to stop, in about 20 minutes or so. So I gave her an extra 10 or 15 minutes and she said, well, gee, I feel like we're just getting started. To which I replied, what do you want to do? And she said, well, we have to meet again. I said, okay. So when she was leaving my apartment, that's when I realized that maybe I could build a business on this if I came up with a great way to brand it. And again, like I didn't want to say I'm a marketing consultant because that sounds pretty lame from my perspective. So I just realized with this woman, because her business she was so emotionally invested in her business, I almost felt like I was a therapist when I was talking to her. Like, well, how does that make you feel?
Right.
To really try to find out what's going on in her head and her heart and what the real issues are. So I came up pretty quickly. I came up with this guy, this name, marketing therapy.
Okay.
Which, if nothing else, it makes people wonder, well, what the hell is that? So that was the start of me doing that. And I did that for the next 10 or 15 years until we get to 2013. And I didn't stop doing it when I got into Big Idea Video. I just created another business. All you need to do is buy the domain Big Idea Video, video.biz, and put it up on the internet, and you have another business. So I didn't stop marketing therapy. But in addition to that, because after consulting people for 10 or 15 years, I just realized that all of them needed video and none of them really knew how to do it. And I just realized that they might not marketing can mean so many different things. It's such a broad umbrella. But video is something that everyone understands. And not only do they understand it, but it's a sexy thing. If you say you know how to create great digital video content that gets people excited about your business, they're going to want to know more about that. So I felt that was not only something that I could embrace because of my creative talent, But also from a marketing perspective, I really thought I could build a whole new business funnel, a whole business model based on these multiple kinds of videos. So that's kind of a long answer to your question.
That's perfectly all right, and that was needed, John. I will ask more questions on this because videos. You see, everyone is making videos nowadays, and small businesses are finding it is as the as the final answer to all their marketing problems. Even big businesses, everybody is there, and today it's the online use of videos to a great extent. Every report, every analysis, you understand, and video you will find at the top. Even on social media, you see YouTube, you see anybody
Right.
else, and they would
Right.
say reels. They talk about reels. They talk about shorts. You change the name, but wherever you go, you'll find something called videos. Even audios are getting converted into video format, and even text is getting converted into video format. Everything is getting converted into video format
Well, just
to
just
push
look
it
at
on different.
look at TikTok. I mean, how TikTok has exploded. I mean, I think that's the number one social media platform right now. Certainly for people, under 40 or under
Yes,
30.
yes. In fact, it's creating a lot of problems for Meta, Facebook, or whatever, and they are changing so much of their strategy now. They are coming out almost like trying to become like TikTok. If TikTok is banned in India at the moment, but I'm sure with
Oh,
at the
really? It's
moment because
banned. Did you said it's banned in India?
yes, for the last couple of years because uh, of our relationship with China, and then there were many other platforms are there which are not in India available at the
I
moment.
did not know that. It's like it's exploding here in the States.
Yes, but I've been reading about it everywhere. So I in fact I asked this question to one of the top guys uh, in the industry about when he said that because of TikTok, Instagram, and everybody, they are changing a lot of their stuff. So I asked them that India is such a huge market, and when you have got Instagram and Facebook, and they're all changing so much of stuff, who would they be fighting in India? Because the TikTok is not a competitor at the moment for them. So would they be fighting ghosts, or is it like fixing something which is not broken in India? So I guess for India, Instagram will have to think of a different strategy, perhaps, or maybe they will get prepared for the time when they hope that TikTok will be able to come back in India. But I don't know whether that will be a reality soon.
So you're saying it's based on the bad relations between the two countries? That's why it's banned?
It's not bad relations. You can say these are all part of diplomatic, what you call understanding. When how they look at things differently, and there were certain tensions in the last early on, say 2 years back, and during that time, obviously India has every right to take steps based on all threat perceptions and pre- all those business mechanics and business understanding. So many, not only one. There are many Chinese applications which have been, at the moment they are not operating in India. There are other applications also. Anything which they think that may be a threat, or in terms of data security, because there is a lot of problem of in terms of data security. We believe that Indian government believes that a lot of data localization should happen, and uh,
Yeah.
that's the issue.
Yeah, I mean, U.S. doesn't have the best relations with China either, and that is one of the concerns that China is using this to steal data. So um, wouldn't surprise me. I think there are a lot of people in the U.S. that would probably like to ban TikTok for that reason.
Uh, yeah, but you see, TikTok has become such a big part of US life, and mm, but we must give it to TikTok how they transform themselves from being, where a lot of different sort of videos were playing, and then suddenly a lot of businesses have started using it, and a lot of young generation is there, and now because of that, even companies like Instagram and all these things, they have to
Right.
change so much of their business policies going forward. And today, if you type about Instagram and all that stuff, you'll come to know it's all vis-a-vis everybody. And I'll tell you, all those big websites also who talk about, different reports and all, they are coming out with special reports on, how to do better on TikTok, how you can do better on this, how to do that. So that's the changing world. But that also uh, comes out so strongly, that how you could visualize the importance of video even in 2013, when the market was not the way it is. And as I said, podcast and video cast, and
Right.
businesses using video. So I just wanted to understand from you, John, that during those times, how did the market, the businesses that you are advising, especially the small businesses, take to that idea of videos during that time from you?
Very positively. I mean, it's still amazing to me now that there are many businesses that still have no video. They all wanted video. Not all of them wanted to pay for the video.
Right.
That's the problem. This is the problem I face, because
I thought this was a problem only in India, on this part of the world.
Well, there's always someone that could do it for less. You know what I'm saying? So the challenge that I found is not to convince someone to do video, but to convince someone to have me do the video, because it started to become a commodity.
Right.
And then the question is, what's the least amount of money that I can pay for a video? And that would not be me. Do you know what I'm saying? So that became the challenge, is getting someone to listen. There were many people that would charge 2 or 3 times also what I was charging. So it's the challenge, I think, for any business owner in the service industry is to figure out figure out the right a good compatible client, a good prospect, because there are going to be some people that are just too small, that just don't have the money. So that the responsibility was on me to find clients where, a few $1,000s for a video didn't scare them away. So that was that was the part I didn't like, because I don't like the business development part. I'm a creative guy, and I was forced to do everything, to wear a lot of hats. And it's really tough when you're doing everything to also be the guy that's looking under rocks trying to find clients.
I understand it. I fully understand, because I also am not as creative as you, but even when you are doing, something like journalism or podcast or something, then business development is a totally different thing. Even in podcast, people talk about monetization, but obviously you don't go and tell people, listen, man, I do an interview for you, so you give me money. Means that sounds very different than what I have been trained for in journalism school and all these years. It's like you editorial talking to marketing straightway of a different company and asking, it's not going. It then becomes very difficult to operate, and neither it for your sensitivities also, it does not work that way.
Well, I didn't tell you this. You don't know this, I don't think, but because I don't know if I shared any of this, but maybe I did. You think it was early to get into video in 2013. I got into podcasting in early 2006.
Wow. You must tell us about that. Because I'm also going to ask you about the G cred. We can't leave that out as your big achievement,
G cred, right?
Yes.
So listen, a lot of people, entrepreneurs, I think their biggest problem is they don't pay attention. They don't pay attention. You can't, if you want to be successful as a business owner, it's not just what's happening now. is what's going to be happening next week, next month, next year. So again, I don't care what your industry is. You've got to keep your fingers on the pulse of the future. And you're not always going to get it right because no one can predict the future. But in my case, when I'm a curious person. And I think that has served me well. That curious personality has served me well in my career, because when I heard about podcasting in 2005, I was really intrigued with it. And I started listening to as many podcasts on podcasting that I could get my ears on. And when I realized how relatively easy it was, even back then, to have a podcast, I said to myself, boy, this would be fun to do. I like talking to people. And I should also say, back to our earlier conversation, because I was having to do business development, I thought that podcasting might be a possible way of getting business prospects in front of me, have a one-on-one conversation with someone that I would like to have as a client. And I wasn't comfortable picking up the phone and making cold calls and start calling people. But when my assistant sent out an email that I targeted to a business owner that I thought would be a really good match for my business, for my marketing consulting, and invited him to be on the marketing show with John Follis, everyone that we asked said, I'm not sure what a podcast is, but sure, I'll be on it.
Right.
Because again, this was my show went live in February of 06. And so that was pretty early, and a lot of people there then, it was the new shiny object. And all they knew is that it was an opportunity for them to talk for 20 or 30 minutes about their business to a worldwide audience. And I wasn't charging them a penny to do it. So they said, sounds good to me. The only problem was I had a difficult time of converting those guests into clients, because I was branding myself unintentionally, not as a brilliant advertising marketing guy, but as a really nice guy who hosts a podcast.
Yeah, that happens. That happens when you can be the nicest guy in the room, but not the one who is making the money. So
So
somebody else is making the money.
try to flip the perception from being a podcast host to being a brilliant, award-winning creative marketing guy who could solve a lot of their problems if they hired me to consult them was a really hard flip to do. I did get one or two out of the 50 or 60 people I interviewed, but I realized pretty early on, Jay, that after the first dozen or so, that it just wasn't going to happen. And at that point, I said, well, screw that strategy. Let me just find the smartest people around the country that I would like to talk to and learn from, because so much was happening. This was when YouTube was just starting, and Facebook was just starting, and LinkedIn was just starting, and people were saying, what is a blog, and what is SEO and SEM and all this stuff, and what's a WordPress website, and what's all this stuff. So I found people who were on the cutting edge with all that stuff and invited them to be a guest on my show. So the education that I got just by interviewing the smartest people in the country on all this stuff was invaluable to me.
Yeah. You got. Was it because of that you were honored at the White House?
No, not.
Okay.
Not even close. Okay. I don't think the White House honors podcasters very much.
Okay, I'll come to that question after this. But John, tell me, you have had done so many things, and a lot of places you did not make money. So the curious question for me is that where did you finally make your money in advertising?
Well, I made a lot of money not in advertising. I bought Apple stock pretty early on.
Okay.
So that helped.
Okay. Okay.
I was never about the money in my career. There are you can make a lot of money in advertising, just sell your soul and you could make a lot of money. And I wasn't, I tried not to do that.
Okay.
It's not that I didn't want to be successful and didn't want to win a lot of awards, but to me, it was more about being the best advertising guy, not necessarily the richest advertising guy. And I would have liked to be both. But I just focused on working for the best agencies and not necessarily the ones that paid the most, because
Right.
to me it was about my craft. I really wanted to be known for my great advertising, and I hope that eventually that would lead to more money. So really, the most money I made was on my own when I left the big agency world, because I kept getting fired a lot.
Yeah.
And but I found a great new business guy, and we did really well. And that's for the first couple of years, first 2 or 3 years of that business. He was really, really good at finding the business, and I was really good at doing the creative work. So we made a very good team for a few years, and with uh, our agency, I finally started making some money.
Okay. So if I understand, John, then your advice, who has seen life so close uh, from an advertising world so closely, what is your advice that people who want to really do creative work should also look at other streams of revenue where they can, which would be enough for to pay their bills?
Well, I have to thank my father for my investing, because he was a very savvy investor, and he would talk to my sisters and I when we were pretty young and stress the value of. He said, "You're never going to get rich working for someone else." That's one thing he said.
Okay.
And you might not even get rich working for yourself, but you're going to have probably the best chance of getting rich is if you learn how to invest wisely. So that's and that takes a little bit of skill and a lot of luck.
Absolutely.
So
And
I consider myself very, very lucky, but I I feel very fortunate, as I said, to have a father who really encouraged me to think about investing. And fortunately, I mean, listen, it's not like considering what the market has done in the U.S. I don't know what's doing overseas, but in the U.S., what the market has done the past month is frightening. So it's not like I'm sitting back on my laurels saying, I'm a great investor, because the game isn't over. The market goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, and right now it's gone down quite a bit. But um, I've done well enough to feel like I don't have to chase after clients anymore. Let's put it that way.
that's great to uh, know, John, because you see, you started your advertising career, and in the first 7 years, you got fired 4 times, and then you built it up. Tell us about that, because this will be a lot of understanding for people who are not just getting into advertising, but any
Yeah,
other line. How
yeah,
how things can go wrong for the right or wrong reasons,
right.
and how you can make things right, because the next 25 years were fabulous for you.
Yeah, well, I went to one of the top schools in the U.S. for advertising. It's called Syracuse University. And it's about 5 hours north of New York City. And most of the students that graduate at Syracuse go directly to New York and get jobs on Madison Avenue. They taught a lot of great classes at Syracuse related to advertising, but one course they never taught me, and maybe they should, is office politics. You understand that, right?
Everybody experiences that.
Right. And there's no city, I don't think there's a city in the world and a business in the world that is more steeped in politics than New York City and Madison Avenue advertising, because it's a creative business, right? The currency on Madison Avenue is creativity, and everyone's got their own opinion as to what good creative work is.
Right.
So a lot of it comes down to personality and ego, and how much you're willing to knock people down to get your ad sold and all that stuff. So there's a lot of backstabbing and political maneuvering around that enables certain people to become successful, even though they may not be the most talented. They may be very good at office politics. And that was a rude awakening for me, to be confronted with an environment like that, because not only was I not prepared for it, I really didn't want to have anything to do with it. And the problem with that is that, at least for me, it was unavoidable. When you're thrown in an environment like that, and you get an assignment, it's not just you working on the assignment with your teammate. There are 2 or 3 other teams competing for the same thing. Right. And remember the show The Apprentice? Did you have that in India? The Apprentice with Donald Trump?
Yes, we had. I didn't watch it, but I do know about it.
Okay. So The Apprentice was similar. People who don't work in advertising or in New York, who are familiar with the show The Apprentice, know that on that show there were 2 teams of people competing against each other for the same thing. And the whole show, The Apprentice, is built on the drama of the interaction between the people trying to do better than the other team, and the personalities, right? Well, that's kind of a microcosm of what it's like to work at a big agency in New York. Just multiply that times 20 or 30. Right. And that gives you an idea of what the environment is like in advertising, when there's a lot of egos, a lot of stuff. And I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And some people are good at it, and I was not. So as a result, and I should say the other reason I got fired a couple of times was, and maybe your listeners and viewers can relate to this. Generally speaking, when you get hired at a big company, you get hired by someone who likes you. The other people at the company may not be that impressed with you, but at least the guy who hires you likes you, right?
Right.
So if that guy suddenly leaves the company after he brings you in, you're gonna be vulnerable. And that happened to me twice, where the guy who was just a brilliant advertising guy brought me in, and within 3 months, in two situations, he left to get another job, a better job. So I was kind of stuck hanging there. And in both of those situations, I eventually got fired. So I think that was probably a factor, not the only factor, but certainly a contributing factor.
Right. It happens. It can happen. In fact, the top guy would like your creativity. You talk to them, you could have some meeting with them, and then they can always hire you. But obviously, not everybody in the team or the company may feel that way. And everybody wants somebody else's place all the time. This is how this happens in all companies. So
I'll just say one other thing though. My personality as a personality didn't really fit well in the corporate environment, and there are a couple reasons for that. Maybe because my dad was an entrepreneur, so maybe I had the entrepreneurial blood flowing through my veins, and that just didn't sync well with the corporate environment. But I have kind of an irreverent personality where I kind of like challenging authority, and just have a kind of a irreverent perspective of things, and that doesn't work well in a big corporate environment where people want you to just stay in your lane, right? So the personality trait that I think got me in so much trouble at these big agencies are exactly the same personality traits that made me as successful as I was as an entrepreneur.
right. So it's important to understand one's personality better at the initial stages itself. That would
Which
help
is not,
somebody.
yeah, which is not always possible, of course. Sometimes you
Awesome.
don't realize it until you're in a situation and you just kind of, I didn't realize it until I was fired 4 times and then, started freelancing and was fortunate to find a business partner, and things turned around the way they did. So had that not happened, I would never have realized that.
Right, right. But you did fairly good after that. After those initial 7 years, you became an entrepreneur, and in fact, immediately after, I guess you invented the term called G-Cred in Web 2.3, 2.0. Now there is a lot of talk of Web 3.0, but during
Yeah.
2.0, you were the man. G-Cred. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I'll just make one comment before we go into G-Cred. So, when I teamed up, my partner was as good at finding business as I was at creative. We were both really good at our specialties, and because we were different in that way, our agency just exploded really quickly.
Okay.
Within 2 or 3 years, we had clients knocking down our doors.
What was
And
the name of your agency that time?
well, originally it was my name and his. It was Follis and Verdi. His last name was
Okay.
Verdi. So we did that for the first 3.5 years, and then we added a third partner. So it became Follis DeVito Verdi. And
Okay.
4 years into our agency, we were the second most award-winning agency in New York, and we were beating out all the agencies who had worldwide networks. Ogilvy and Mather, McCann Erickson, J. Walter Thompson, big worldwide agencies, and they were like 7 of us who worked at our agency at the time. So to become the second most award-winning agency of all the agencies in New York, there's like 2,300 agencies in New York. That was pretty amazing. And the work that we did was winning awards like crazy. In the first 3 years, I couldn't win any awards. I had trouble getting my work produced at big agencies. And then 3 years working with my business partner, where basically I could work on all the clients. I was calling the shots. I won over 3 dozen awards in about 3.5, 4 years, and was voted one of the top New York ad guys by the New York Advertising Club. So my career totally turned around just in the 4 years having my own agency. But back to your question about G-Cred. So my agency did that for several years. And then when I was on my own and trying to figure out how to, I don't like to use the word reinvent, but basically evolve my business. And I didn't want to, it wasn't so cool to be an advertising guy in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so when I was paying attention to the evolving digital landscape right after the turn of the century, I just realized that Google was brand new. I forget what year Google came out, but it was shortly after the turn of the century. And I just realized the importance of any business, product, organization, or even professional person to show up when someone Googled your name.
Right.
And because I'm good at naming things, that's part of what I do. I came up with a kind of a slang term that I thought reflected what I just said, the value of showing up on Google. And I came up with the term that I call it G cred. G for Google, cred for credibility.
Right.
And I try to do whatever I can to integrate the term into the slang culture, the popular culture of the U.S. I came as close as writing an article for Adweek magazine. I don't know if you know Adweek magazine in
Yes,
India.
it's known. It's known.
Okay, so I was a contributing columnist for Adweek, and so that's why I introduced the term G-Cred in an article in a column for Adweek in 2006, I think. So it didn't quite, it's not like people all over all of a sudden started using the term G-Cred for that, but I tried. I,
But people did use it. It became
I tried to build a way where with technology, I was talking to some software developers and say, is there a way that through the certain software people can get a G-Cred score where everyone could like put their name in there and it would pop out some kind of a score, and so I wasn't able, I think I would have had to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to create an app that created that enabled someone to have a G-Cred score. But basically, whenever you just type your name or type anything in Google, a number comes up, and that's essentially your G-Cred score. How many times it shows up.
You could understand that part, because even today, anybody, a lot of people do their, they search themselves on Google, and you can call it by any other name, but the fact is that a lot of online reputation is happening around that Google search bar itself.
And regardless of the fact that maybe the term G-Cred didn't catch on the way I hoped, it doesn't mean that the concept behind it is irrelevant, because what it made me realize, if I'm going to be like the champion for G-Cred, then I've got to have G-Cred myself. I better have good G-Cred. So it was around that time where I just realized that I better start becoming an expert at content creation, digital content creation. So that's when I got into podcasting and blogging and video creation, and started putting as much stuff, and not just, it's not just volume, it's quality. A lot of people just realize, we were talking earlier about the importance of video. Just because everyone can agree that video is important, it doesn't mean that you could just slap any crappy video up there and you're good to go. You got to really think about what you're saying in the video. Make sure, just like anything that you put on the internet, that's going to represent your company, your product, your brand, everything about you. So it better be a really good reflection about who you are, what you're selling, what you're putting out there. So it better be good.
Right, John. In fact, there is so much to talk to, but I know it's late into the night there, and
no problem.
It's not that easy to continue talking and telling about yourself. Your whole life passes through in your brain, in front of your eyes, and then you take out nuggets from that. My last question to the man who sold from everything from Coke to God. My last question to you is about your being honored at the White. somehow I see you credit, though humorously, that Hitler helped you.
Okay. That's a story. I'll try to. How much time? How much time do we have?
We can you
Okay.
can know about the
So the
because
short.
it's a very important is being honored at the White House is not a and the UN for its public service work. It's
And
not a
the UN,
easy
right?
thing, and
Yeah, and it all happened within 6 months of one another, and related but not the same thing. So they're actually two slightly different things that I got invited, but both of them had to do with public service work that I had done. I've always made public service work a big part of my my advertising career. So whenever I had the opportunity to work, to use my talents toward helping to market or advertise a cause that I thought was important, I would do that. And being invited and honored at the White House, and then winning an award that I was given at the UN, both had to do with a public service campaign they did for child abuse prevention and child abuse awareness. And it started with me sitting home at night in my pajamas watching TV and stumbling on a documentary about Hitler. So you say, well, what does that have to do with getting invited to the White House or public service? Well, during this documentary, they mentioned that Hitler was abused on a regular basis by his father. And once I heard that, a light bulb went on over my head, and I said, I've got to figure out how to turn this fact into an ad for child abuse awareness, because that could really get attention, right?
Right.
So I came up with an ad that leveraged the fact that Hitler was abused as a kid. And I showed it to my business partner. He said, this is a great ad. We've got to figure out how to sell it. I just came up with it on my own. I wrote the copy. I designed the whole thing. I put it together. I made a mock-up so it looked like a real ad. And he called up the National Committee for the Prevention of Child Abuse. He didn't want to give away the idea. He wanted to figure out how to meet them so we could have a meeting, right? So we could kind of warm up the conversation before we showed the ad. It just, here's where luck is a big part of any success, right? And when he called them up, it was just our luck that they were based in Chicago. We were in New York. And they said, listen, we're going to be in New York in a couple of weeks. We're meeting with the NBA, National Basketball Association, for a meeting. We didn't know why, but they said, why don't you come up and meet us at the NBA headquarters in New York City? They're just up the street from you, and you could show us your ad. I think we showed them some other award-winning public service ads that I had done. So that intrigued them, right? They knew that I did great, really high impact work that was really smart and effective. So they were interested. But when we met them at the NBA, they were meeting the NBA because they wanted the NBA to give them some, you said you understand media. They wanted to get the NBA to give them some TV media time to do some TV commercials during their NBA playoff games.
Right.
The problem was they didn't have an ad agency to do the ads. So we thought we were meeting them to show my little ad. Their agenda was to see if they liked us so they could ask us to do these national TV commercials. We had no idea that that was their agenda. I showed them the Hitler ad. They said, we can't do that. But how would you like to do some TV commercials for us? And we said, yeah, that sounds good. And they said they're going to be running nationally on TV. The NBA is going to donate $5 million worth of media time. So they're going to be running on every NBA playoff game for the next 4 or 5 weeks. So you'll work, anyone who watches basketball is definitely going to see these spots. And apparently one of the people who watched it was the president of the United States, because a couple of months after the commercials ran, I got invited from the White House. I still don't know officially how it happened, but someone at the White House obviously saw the work and liked the work and felt that this is when George Bush the first was president, and they felt they made it part of their administration to honor people around the United States who they felt were doing good service to the country. So it wasn't just me that was honored. It was me and a couple dozen other people. But we did get invited to a reception for us because of our work. And we did get a photo op with the First Lady. So I got my picture taken with the First Lady, which was pretty cool. And then 6 months later, Ajay, we were able to sell the Hitler ad. And someone at the United Nations saw the Hitler ad and decided to give it the first ever United Nations Public Service Award. So 6 months after I got invited to the White House, got an invitation to the White House, I got an invitation from the United Nations saying, we just gave your ad an award. Would you like to come to United Nations to receive it? So I hopped on my bicycle and rode to the UN and got my award.
Right.
That was a good year for me.
Yeah, I understand what it could have meant for you. Means getting an award at two top places that anybody could aspire for. So now let me ask you one question, and let that be the last question. Because it is important for some advice for the youngsters, is from the man who sold from everything from Coke to God. With lot of during that time, there was still some way of looking at what is wrong, what is right, what are the products. Today, a lot of people, keep on making advertisement material, advertising, and sometimes it is very difficult to know which product is good, which product is bad. What is your advice to the young generation who are making ads, whether for offline ads, online ads? How do they conduct best? How they can walk through all these waters, which may not be so easy to wade through during these times?
Well, when you say what advice would I give young people who are making ads for different products, and how do you wait? I mean, in what respect are you asking me that question?
Yes, because a lot of times some products are not that good for the public. And I'm not talking about Coke.
Many products are not that good.
Many products. How does one deal with their personal questions? Because earlier there used to be agencies who used to deal with such things, and then they used to take work. But nowadays there are a lot of freelancers, a couple of people who are working on advertising a lot of product. They go for online advertising. So it just need a bit of creative for anybody to do that. And later they find out that the product has not been that great, or it was not for social good. It was something that they would not have wanted to do that. How does one wade through all these waters?
Well, I can't speak for anyone else. I mean, it's a very personal decision. Some people care about that stuff. Some people don't. This is what I was saying earlier. You were asking me about making money. You can make a lot of money selling Coke and McDonald's. That's not the best food for you, right?
Okay.
You're gonna if all you do is have a diet of soda and McDonald's, you're not going to live to 70.
Right.
Right. And some people in the advertising business could care less if you're just getting paid. Listen, the jobs that paid the most money back in the day were the cigarette accounts.
Okay.
They paid a crap load of money, because they knew a lot of people didn't want to work on it. So if you were willing to, this is what I was talking about, selling your soul, right? I was never a smoker, I never liked cigarettes, so you couldn't pay me enough money to work on an account like that. But listen, if you got rent to pay and you've got a couple of kids to feed, you're just going to have to you'll take the money, right?
Right.
So not
I
everyone
understand.
not everyone is in a position to be choosy,
I,
is what
I,
I'm
I
saying, right?
understand. Why I asked is that in a place like India, there's a lot of debate, and just very recently there was some discussion going on that, and this has been ongoing also off and on, that actors, people, celebrities, they are endorsing products which they should not be doing. Now, there can be a different more way of looking at it, and everybody looks at it differently. But in the same league, you can say that there are a lot of advertising agencies also uh, making the making different ads, but they are in the background, but the actor is seen or celebrity is seen, and their moral compass for them is totally different. No, how does one decide this part of it, or is it that the public is also to be blamed because they are choosing those products? So advertising companies, they are pushing those products much
Well,
more.
listen, you and I could sit here and talk about soda being bad, and there are other people that would look at us and say, "What is your problem?"
Okay.
Soda's not bad. So it's all relative, really. It's all
Right.
relative, and it's all personal. If you have soda occasionally or McDonald's occasionally, I suppose it's fine. Um, so it's every that's this is why I said earlier, everyone is different. Everyone's
Right.
got their own values. Um, but I one of the reasons I got fired is basically because of this debate that you're talking about, where I actually made the mistake at a big corporate event of
Okay.
asking the CEO this question.
Okay.
I
Okay.
said, "How do you feel about advertising products that are not so healthy and targeting mothers and their kids?" It was a Q&A session. So I
Okay.
just
Okay.
thought that was a fair, innocent question. But I was in a room in an auditorium with about 1,200 people. And when I asked that question, everyone in the room turned their head and looked at me like, "Who asked that question?" And a few months later, I got fired.
Okay. I get you. So
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So again, some people can argue that McDonald's is one of the worst things you can eat, and Coke is one of the worst things you could drink. And most Americans, who are fat, you come to America. A lot of people from other parts of the world, they come to America and they say, "Oh my God, everyone is so fat here," right? It's because they eat crap. Because there's so and you could blame advertising for that. Some of the the most beautiful photography and the best film is pouring that glass of Coke with the ice and the bubbles and that Big Mac or that Burger King. It looks so delicious. So a lot of people blame advertising on the fact that Americans eat so poorly. Their diet is so bad.
I get it. I'm maybe it's difficult, if, even it's a difficult question for me to also ask, and it's even a difficult question for you to answer, because I guess the answer lies that there are proper laws in every country where people are consuming such products, and uh, the authorities ensure that uh, people are consuming the right kind of products, and individual choices are good choices, that they don't that they don't consume so much of those products that they become unhealthy for them.
Well, I gotta say, Jay, what really gets under my skin is that the laws in this country allow the packaging of these products to be very deceptive. So
Yeah.
you can say healthy on the packaging, when it's full of sugar, right? You could come up what advertisers can get away with saying to the average consumer, even someone like me who has spent a lifetime in the business, can find it very confusing when I go shopping, because you pick up a product and the packaging, it's processed food, it's full of sugar, and the the product name will be Smart Choice or
Right.
healthy something or other. So they can get away with using terms like that, that if the consumer doesn't read the small type on the side that says how many grams of fat, how many grams of sugar, um, how much cholesterol is in it, they're going to buy crappy food without realizing it. And that's where
Yeah.
I wish the laws would be a little bit stricter. I think, it's very tough because in Washington D.C. there's so many lobbyists who work for the sugar companies, right? And their tobacco companies, or that, and these lobbyists have so much money. These companies pay them so much money to go and try to convince the politicians to be, not to be strict about these laws. That's a problem,
I understand, John.
That's
But
all
I
another,
guess,
that's all another
yeah,
subject.
no, yeah. It's, I guess, the most important factor here is the consumer himself or herself, and they take decisions as per what their health is good, and that you should not just read the book because the cover is good. That's all I can say.
I
That's
tell you, you watch TV here on a Sunday morning, and they're all pharmaceutical ads. Everything is a pill. I don't know if it's like
right.
that in India, but when they know it's an adult audience, like they know the kids aren't up on Sunday morning, right? They're just recovering from Saturday night. So on Sunday morning, it's all the adults, and every commercial is for some new pill, some pharmaceutical pill, you know, and that's another huge industry.
Right.
But
Right.
anyway,
In India, we don't have that as yet because you can't advertise, as far as I know, those what you call uh, those drugs here, those medicines here. Maybe some OTC drugs can be advertised. That's the over-the-counter drugs which you can get without prescription. So I guess maybe those can be.
yeah, well, a lot of the messages, well, tell your doctor that this is what you need. So, and that may
Yeah.
not be OTC, but they want people to ask their doctor for it, so their doctor could prescribe it.
Right. It's
And
a
my
it's a it's
my
a it's a very strong. Yeah. Carry on. Carry on.
my girlfriend is a pharmacist. So, all these drugs commercials, she says, "Oh my, that drug is terrible. That's a terrible drug." Because of all the side effects and all that stuff. So, it's just that's where the whole ethical issue comes in with advertising, where
Yes.
you're,
Yes. Yes.
questioning. But when you work for an agency, that's, you have a job, and you don't have the luxury of, most of the time, you don't have the luxury of deciding which products and services you work on. You get hired, you get stuck on a drug account, or selling marshmallows or some crappy product. You better do a good job, but it's hard if in your mind it's a shit product.
That time account matters. Every account matters.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, John, for all this information, all the discussions, all the about the journey of your life, about so much of and especially the world has to be thankful to you that you introduced video so early on, and the trend has picked up so well. And I would say you are a visionary. That's the reason I talked about that first.
Well, thank
On
you.
this note, it's a wrap on this edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you, AJ.